When it comes to the wild, we have no say in how the cards are dealt out here. We can only control how we prepare before we get out here. So when we need to, we can adapt to the environment and situation that we find ourselves. So it seems like every week we see a headline about someone getting lost outdoors, getting hurt, or some sort of tragedy happening while someone is outdoors. Now, we can't necessarily prepare for every scenario that we're going to come across out here, but we can do some things ahead of time that can prepare us to handle the situations as they arise out here. You can carry a pack full of gear, but that doesn't necessarily mean, number one, that you know how to use the gear that's in that pack, and number two, how to use that gear in your situation, in your environment. So what can we do to help us begin the process of becoming more prepared while we're outdoors? It's pretty simple. We follow the acronym ADAPT. So the first letter in ADAPT is A, and that represents awareness. Awareness, in my personal opinion, is a skill set. Now, some may agree or disagree with that, and that's perfectly fine. But the reason I consider it a skill set is because it allows you to, number one, stay aware of what's happening around you. For instance, on the walk in to this location, I seen some birch trees, some of their bark's flaking off. Now I know, hey, I can go there if I need fire starting resources. Or if I was setting up camp here for the night, I know off to my right is a large creek, to my left is a small creek, and now I can go and look which one's going to be a better suited for me to resupply water for the night. But there is a specific reason I chose this spot and specifically, and I want you to comment down below if you've picked it out already. Don't cheat and look down in the comments right away, but go ahead, pause the video right now, just take in what's happening in the scene, and we'll talk about why I chose this spot. So I chose this spot because if you look to my right here, heading off between these two trees here, just looks like some dirt. We're in the woods, dirt's everywhere. But being an experienced outdoorsman, I can pick up on subtle hints of what are game trails. Now, obviously, this one is a little bit more obvious, but I wanted to highlight that for that specific reason. But we can tell that this is a game trail of where it's either coming from or going to, and that is a body of water. Where it's at lighter green in the background, that is a small pond. It's not very large because it's a kind of a pooling area between that large creek and the smaller creek to my left. So we know that animals, humans alike, are going to be attracted to water. We want to be close to water. We're going to go to water to collect water because we need that. It's one of the things we need to survive. So if we're setting up camp here for the night, obviously not plopping down camp here because we've got the game trail, run the risk of having an issue with an animal potentially. Probably set up a camp off over there because just by reading the terrain, very, very little sign of animals walking through there. Not saying that they don't, but they're not frequenting it as much as this spot here. So that's why we stay aware of what's going on around us and continually work on that skill set, because fortunately in this day and age, we all doom scroll, we all get caught up in our phone, probably more than we'd like to admit. But if you consciously work on staying observant of what's happening around you, it allows you to see what resources you have, as well as mitigate any issues before they escalate. So let's take a look at the second letter in ADAPT, and that is D for decision making. Whether we are consciously or subconsciously doing it, we are continually making decisions every single second of our lives. Now, when we're outdoors, that decision making can become more crucial. Obviously, like we just talked about with awareness, decision not to camp on a game trail, probably pretty smart. Camping close to water, probably really smart. Let's talk about this time that I was taking an advanced survival course, and part of that course was you don't get clean water until you collect it, boil it, and bring it back. So throughout that course, had to do that kind of one-for-one type thing. Well, out on the course, navigating, collecting materials, doing all that fun stuff, I had to make the choice coming across a creek. Now, I've drank a lot of the streams and creeks in that area, so I was pretty comfortable with knowing, hey, I can drink on this and I'm not going to get sick. That's not always the case when you're outdoors, but that is a time when you just have to make a decision. Do I want to suffer from dehydration and have clouded judgment, skyrocketing fatigue because my body's starting to cramp up, starting to slow down? Those are all decisions you have to continually weigh when you're out here. Let's get down in this creek and we'll take a look kind of what we're looking at over here. Since we're by this creek, let's just stay on that topic of doing the decision making of whether we're going to drink from this or find something else. Now I can tell just by standing here because I can see water glistening up there from movement, and I can see movement down here. But overall, this is a pretty stagnant creek. This definitely would not be my first option to drink from or get water from, because it's going to be a little gnarly unless you have something to take care of that taste. But let's say we're in that situation, a survival situation, where, hey, we have to make that choice. Do we drink from this, run the risk of getting sick, having to drink some gnarly water, but being able to hydrate and get to a better source or get out of the situation we find ourselves? Or do I walk up this stream, up this creek a ways to see if I can't find a better flow of water or a bigger body of water that has more movement, isn't so stagnant? Because I'm not sure if you can tell in the video, but there is like a film across the top of this just from this sitting here, because it's very, very slow moving. That is just part of those critical decisions that you have to make. And just like awareness, you know, there is no decision making 101. You have to be aware of a decision making process, what works for you, what works based off your experience, what you're willing to push the limits on. That all comes into play, and that's all really dictated by the situation you find yourself. So let's look at our third letter, which is another A, and that will be for abilities. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, what is he talking about with abilities? And this is going to be a little bit outside of the box conversation, but you'll understand kind of where I'm coming from at the end. Now, we all know our knowledge, experience, skills that we know how to do. Those all encompass our abilities. Think of it like a video game. If you're playing Call of Duty and you get to choose some perks, those just help give you further abilities. We're doing the same thing here. We're learning how to start a fire. I'm learning with a lighter first. Okay, now I learned that. Let me go to a ferro rod. Okay, I learned that. Let me go to a bow drill. Now, obviously, there's other things and other steps in that process, but that's just a real general idea of thinking about that progression. So you could think of it as, oh, we're loading into this level. Oh, since I know how to do a bow drill, I can add that perk card in to be able to do that. Same thing with our skills and our knowledge. You're just taking the time to learn something, and then now, hey, I have that squirreled away if I need it, or if I want to use that ability. The other aspect of it is the gear we carry. Now I have this pack here. This is a One Tigress Wild Rocket. I haven't owned it very long, so I can't give you a ton of feedback on it yet, but we'll dive into that in future videos. But the reason I got this, because of how I mentioned at the beginning of this series, I'm starting from zero. So I wanted to set up a pack that you could get all relatively cheaply. I think all in all, this pack and all the gear in it, you're probably looking in the neighborhood between $500 and $1,000. Maybe, let's say, an average at $750. Now, for some, that might be a lot of money to spend, but you're working your way towards getting all that stuff. But when you're looking at buying the gear, you want to buy stuff that's going to further your abilities, where your skill set is at. But the reason I set this up in the way it's set up with all the gear is it allows me to practice any skill, whether that's bushcraft, survival, whatever you want to call it, but also have the ability to go out and do overnighters. because that is a crucial part in your overall development in that skill set in the outdoors and getting out into those different areas. So when you're looking at developing skills, buying gear, think of it in terms of, okay, I want to craft or hone this ability. What can I get that's going to allow me to learn how to do that? That might be a course, that might be a book, that might be going to an event to learn from someone, or that might be, hey, if I get this piece of gear, that's going to help me along in that process. Obviously, with photography and video, there are loads and loads of things that I'm continually learning. So if you see some changes in how videos look, videos appear, it's because I'm tinkering with those things and I have an idea of where I want to get to. Now let me get different things and test them out to figure out how I get to where I want to get to with the right gear, the right knowledge, and eventually the skill set. So our fourth letter, P, stands for preparedness. And this is really just how we prepare to do whatever we're doing. Now, the beginning of the series is more focused on general preparation for learning skills, doing overnighters. And as the series goes on, we will go off into different activities. Hey, I want to buy a pack raft. So let me find resources to learn how to do that. Let me find the right one for my budget, how much I want to carry, yada, yada, so forth. And then let's go out there and do it. The other part with preparedness is your personal preparation for going out on a trip. Now, like I mentioned in the previous video, this year I've put more of an emphasis on getting back in the shape and making that a habit again. And while I'm not where I want to be yet, I'm definitely a lot further in that journey because I broke it down and be like, okay, this is how I build some general fitness. Let's crank through that for 2, 3, 4 months. Now I've built a solid foundation. Let me move to getting stronger again, building some conditioning, and you're just breaking them down by steps. Hey, I want to be able to go on a through hike, but I've never hiked in my entire life. Well, let's get the necessary gear to go out and do that, and then let's start training. Let's go on some short hikes. Let's go on some longer hikes, so forth and so on. Same thing with learning a skill. Hey, I want to learn how to do this. Let me get the supplies, and then let's break down and make a game plan to do that. That all encompasses preparedness. I'm not necessarily talking about end of the world stuff, which you can apply to that, but it's really just coming up with your game plan that works for you, doing some research on your own because that only makes you a more competent and capable person, and then putting all that stuff into action. So when it's time to address those things, go do those things, you have done all your preparedness to be more capable in those areas. And for the last letter, T, we have tactics. And now I'm not necessarily talking in terms of military tactics or things of that nature, although you can apply this whole process to that. I'm talking in terms of how you address certain situations. Now, hey, we're going out on this trip. Oh, it's in grizzly country. Let's make sure that we have the abilities to address that. Let's get aware of where the potential areas of activity are. And then we make the decision of, okay, we're going in this area. We're going to stay out of that area. And that falls in your preparedness. And you bring those all together to form your tactic. Your tactic for your trip, your tactic to learn that skill, your tactic to get back into shape. It's just blending the first 4, bring them all together, and that is your plan of attack. That is your tactic. So, kind of how I said with abilities, all these are kind of generally outside of the box discussions, but when you think of it in that progression, awareness, decision making, abilities, preparedness, and then you wrap that up with tactics, they all form one cohesive unit to get you out there, get you doing things. Now, I don't want that to sound like this whole thing is a big process, because it really isn't. Once you learn, hey, this is the kind of gear I like, or this is the gear I need, you can pretty much only pick up things here and there if you need to. The only time you're really going to have to do your due diligence and really form your tactics is when you're going out on a specific trip. Hey, I'm going to Vancouver Island, and I know there's a lot of predators there. What can I bring into Canada to defend myself? What's allowed there? Where can I go? Those sorts of things. So it's really just circumstantial, but tactics is just kind of how you're going to respond to a particular situation. You can run through mental exercises by, hey, if I were in this situation based off what I know, what I might have in my pack, how can I address that? One of the things I want to tie into this series are more kind of like custom experiences for overnighters. So we go out, this is what we're working on, this is the scenario around that overnighter. And that way it gives you an example of how you could break something down, how you can work towards getting skills for that one-off situation, or get more general skills to fall into your overall plan of attack and develop your own tactics. So that is how we adapt to the environments and situations we find ourselves in. Now, I don't want that to sound like a big drawn out process where you have to do loads and loads of research. You just take whatever you want to do, go on a through hike, learn how to start a fire, so forth and so on. Do your research, form your game plan, get out there and make it happen. Because at the end of the day, that's all you really have to do. Get a little bit of research, put together in a cohesive plan that works for you, and then get out and get after it. It was just a simple way of forming multiple different things in a small acronym that you could reference to. Like I said with this series, it's not trying to reinvent the wheel. It's trying to represent things in a different way that might click for you. In the comment section down below, let me know your thoughts on the acronym ADAPT. What would you add? What would you subtract? Is there a different way that you go about determining these things? I'd love hearing all of your comments down below. Look forward to seeing those. Also, do me a favor, hit like, share, and subscribe. That gets more eyes on the community that we build here, brings those people into our community so we can learn together, grow together, and ultimately become more capable. As always, this has been Paul with Adaptable Survival. Adapt your mind, your body, and your gear.